Welcome back to the PT Graduate Podcast. Today, my guest, all the way from Wellington, one of our ambassadors, Carol Pirika. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Rich. How are you doing today?
Good, good, good. And pleased that the technology is playing ball with us today.
That's always helpful.
After our first attempt where it didn't. So it's nice to actually get clear pictures, clear sound, and away we go.
Absolutely.
And as I said, you're one of the ambassadors, and that's kind of one of the reasons I like to chat to the ambassadors and find out a little bit more about them, because people listening might then be able to find out more about you themselves, but also to thank you for all the unpaid work that you do on behalf of the industry, which yeah, that ambassador role brings with it. It's hugely appreciated, and I don't think people realize that it's necessarily realize that it's a volunteer role. So again, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So you're a movement specialist, you're a movement coach. That sort of seems to be the main message coming from your website. You've been a finalist, you've been in the industry a while, so you're no spring chicken in terms of understanding exactly what's involved in terms of helping clients get the results that they want to get. So tell us a little bit about how your journey started and how you got into the industry and to where you are now.
So I came in as a mature student. I'm going to
Right.
be gentle
Yes.
on myself in saying that.
Same.
I think that really where my background kind of came from is I had quite a bad car accident which triggered adrenal and chronic fatigue in me,
Uh,
and I had quite a stressful job at the time. I was living in Melbourne in Australia.
mm,
Um, and I had a really good personal trainer at the time who, when I said to him, I'm having these terrible issues and I have massive migraines and I need to stop training with you. And he said, actually, I can help rehab you back from that.
mm,
And that was when my eyes were opened as to what was actually possible in terms of getting hope back. Because at the time, it did throw me into chronic pain for about 3 years.
right.
I was in a pretty bad way.
Mm,
And it was mainly all soft tissue damage. So all through the neck, whiplash injury. It wasn't even my fault. We were just traveling home in a taxi and we got
mm,
smashed in the back quite bad.
mm,
And so that kind of started my journey off, and it was working with him when he would be working on things like, here's your working on my ankle. And
yeah.
I would be absolutely freaking out, going, "What? How is that you? But I can feel my neck releasing with you working on that. I
Wow.
need to know how you do that."
Mm,
And so, we would just go down this journey. And in the end, he was taking me to the technical bookshop in Melbourne, and we were buying books on anatomy and physiology for me to study so that I could learn more about myself.
yeah.
And so over this quite long journey, we had a team of people that helped to look after me. So it wasn't just him. It was, I also had a naturopath, I had a remedial massage therapist, an acupuncturist, an osteo,
Yeah.
and I had doctors and stuff like that as well, all helping me
Mm,
to recover.
mm,
And that was when we had to get me tested as well because I just wasn't really recovering the way we wanted to. And that's when
yeah.
we realized that
Yeah.
I was in chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
And so, just having to change my lifestyle around from there, like I was doing 3 hours worth of work at the gym every day, and then suddenly having to go from this high impact stuff to I could only do yoga. And even
Yeah.
then my
Yeah.
heart rate was just so ridiculously high.
Mm,
So it was a massive learning curve. And so in the end, Steve sort of said to me, look, I think you really need to look at doing this as a career. And I was like, no, no, I'm not doing this. No, I'm on a really high paying job. I've got, a PA. I'm doing pretty well here
mm,
in the corporate world. And he said, look, why don't you just come and shadow me for a day and see what I do? And if you're interested, we can help you get on board with that.
yeah.
And so I went and shadowed him, and he was just doing some phenomenal stuff. I mean, he was helping people recover from things that they never thought they would be able to recover from. And
Mm,
that
mm,
just got me hooked because I was like, oh, that's what you did for me. Oh,
yeah.
and the fact that you've given someone else hope
Mm,
that you can recover from something that's so serious.
mm,
I was totally addicted pretty much straight away.
Brilliant.
And so when I went on maternity leave with my son, he was 7 or 8 weeks old, and I went back to school. And I studied part-time and evenings and weekends and everything like that through the
Yep.
Australian Institute of Fitness.
Yep.
And then got a scholarship to set my business up at Fitness First. And I was really, really lucky at the time that I had some great mentors through there. So, Donald Carr was our professional development
Mm,
manager at the time. The
right.
first workshop I ever got to do was Chuck Taylor, Bobby Capuccio,
Yep.
Chuck Wolf, Paul Taylor, Bobby Capuccio,
Yeah.
Ian
Yeah.
O'Dwyer, like the big,
Brilliant.
the big hitters.
Hmm.
And it just opened my eyes up to the myriad of possibilities that we had available to us.
Mm,
I could really see the benefits of my experience coming through in recovery and everything that I had to work on, and how I could then offer that as a skill set to other people.
brilliant. Brilliant.
And that's kind of how it all kind of kicked off. So
Right.
before you knew it,
Right.
I was the 2IC to the personal training manager at Burke Street and Fitness First. And then when we had to move back home, back to New Zealand,
Mm,
I just moved the business and set up from here. And then I was invited to set up at Upper Hutt Physio. So
yeah.
I was based out of there for quite some time. Then
Mm,
I downsized the business and moved home, and now I'm back working in amongst a medical centre and physiotherapy and stuff like that. So my journey's kind of been a little bit of a weird one.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then along the way, because I'm a nerd, I have collected lots of different certifications.
Yeah.
Because there's always something that you can offer someone, and if you don't know it, or if there is a bit of a gap in your knowledge, there's actually a lot of certifications available to be able to help you flesh those things out, or find your style, or find something that resonates with how you deliver
Mm, mm,
the results to your clients. So yeah,
yeah.
that's the
Nice.
short version.
I
That's the
like
short
it.
version.
Am I right in saying that you've gone back to more study with OD with the SOMA course?
Yes, so I'm actually a SOMA level 2 practitioner.
Mm, mm,
So I have been fortunate enough to be mentored by OD for a long time. So I
yeah.
did his mentorship first.
Yeah.
I actually really kind of came across him many years ago when he was doing the Viper with Michelle Delcourt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, it was back then that I was like, this guy's really fascinating, and I've kind of followed him on the periphery of stuff, but we'd never really had a chance to cross paths.
Yeah.
And then when the opportunity came up for me to be mentored by him, I was like, I just jumped at the opportunity to do that.
Mm,
And I
mm,
just never really looked back, because his style and the way that he operates and the type of approach that he has to movement is exactly how I work.
right.
So we're very, 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 very similar. And then
Mm,
from that, of course, then it's that additional exposure to people like Rodney,
yeah.
Corn, and more, contact with Bobby Capuccio as well,
Yeah.
who I just adore.
Mm,
And just that kind of gives you lots of different avenues into other people that are doing similar things, and the
mm,
connection that you can make has been really valuable. It is that
yeah.
connection that you make
Yeah.
with other people that have that similar approach that
Mm,
allows you to kind of flesh out like how you deliver, if
yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
I do find that while we look at clients as being very individual, sometimes I think we forget that us as coaches are very individual too. And so while we can adapt our styles, you also need to find something or a way of learning that resonates with your style of learning, but also your style of delivery,
Yeah.
because that's where you're going to get the best outcomes from the clients that
Mm,
you work
mm,
with.
mm. Totally agree. How does SOMA work for you in your practice? Is SOMA the lens you always look through? Is it just one of the lenses that you look through when you're working with your clients?
I would say it is definitely a primary lens that I use,
Yeah.
because I work with a lot of people that have very limited mobility in some cases. My most severe client is in an electric wheelchair.
Yeah.
and completely unable to walk,
mm,
or, really kind of look after themselves in that sort of way.
mm.
But they still need to be moved because, circulatory stuff
Yep.
is very important, especially when
Mm,
you're mobile like that. And it's enabled me to give people, OD would say, we ungunk the gunky bits,
yeah.
right? So, and
Yeah.
I really like that because I don't
Mm,
think of things as being, tight or kind of locked down. To
yeah.
me, it's like, oh, it's just a little bit stuck. What do
Mm,
we have to
mm,
look at in terms of our connective tissue or where everything attaches to? Where's that going? So if this is the issue, and we just zoom back out and we have a look at it from a different angle, what does that look like? How can it possibly be affected?
mm,
And I think it was really helpful having my own experience with my own rehab as well, that you understand that a lot more when someone is working on your ankle and releases, something in the cervical spine, and you just
yeah.
freaking out. Now I can do that with people when it happens really quickly. So
Yeah.
while that is definitely one lens, that's also, there are other very important components, and we know that, which is, um, if we look at things holistically,
Mm,
is, movement is the big thing. And the reason why I focus mainly on movement first is because that's what most people want from you.
yeah.
Breath
Yeah.
work is obviously incredibly important.
Mm,
If we
mm,
don't have that breath work sorted, you're just going to always be stuck in that upper thoracic.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
those two for me go hand in hand. And that's what I love about SOMA, is that I can teach people to breathe while they move.
Yes.
And often is the case. I used to do a start off with breath work, and you could see people getting frustrated because they weren't moving quickly enough. So to be able to tie the two together kind of ticks a couple of boxes, and it means that I can get people on board faster, but they also feel better straight away.
Mm, mm,
Because the reason why people are coming to you in the first place, especially the clients that I've got coming to me, is because they're in a huge amount of pain.
yeah.
And some of them have been in a huge amount of pain for a long period of time.
Mm,
So
mm,
you've got to be able to make some quick wins with them. And
yeah.
SOMA allows me to do that in a
Mm,
session immediately.
brilliant.
So that's definitely one of the lenses.
Yeah.
The other I look at is definitely nutrition
Mm,
has a massive part to play in it. I love food. I love eating food. I love cooking food. I
yeah.
love all food. Some not so good, some good, mostly good.
Yeah.
Uh, but when my passion around food has always been, how can I use it for sort of good and not for evil, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so teaching people that they can have really delicious meals that meet the criteria for their tissues to be the optimal position or
Mm,
place for them,
mm,
to reduce inflammation, to have things ungunk a little bit more
yeah.
quickly, have
Yeah.
them understand the power of food and the power of hydration, and how the movement with those things will also help. And then you can kind of start to tie into, sleep and all the other bits and pieces that we know affect how the system works as a whole.
Yeah. 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 I
So
like it.
yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Um, and of course, then we touched on this previously when we attempted our first recording. There's that other layer of epigenetics that comes from PH360, which I think the name has slightly evolved over the recent years, but the epigenetics platform that is PH360.
Hmm. So I find that quite beneficial for the people that I work with, particularly those that are very obese and that have
Right.
multiple health conditions, for medicinal purposes around that type 2 diabetes. And
Right.
I get really good results out of that.
Okay.
I'm still relatively new to the PH360 platform.
Yeah.
So I've only just completed my level 1, but I've been sort of on the outskirts of it for a long time,
Mm.
and certainly been very, very, very interested in the epigenetic side of how we can manipulate that gene expression. I mean,
Mm. Mm.
understanding, of course, we can't change the DNA, but to be able to manipulate how the genes express themselves in
Mm.
that DNA brings us back to that what I've always told people right from the beginning, which is we are as individual as our fingerprints. To me, we have our fingerprints for a reason. That tells you that you are individual. This is your own unique blueprint, and how we need to approach your body needs to take that into consideration. So I always explain to people that what I have as a nerd, self-professed nerd, is I have tools in my toolbox. I have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of tools in my
Yeah.
toolbox.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we're going to try some stuff, and we're going to have a play. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pick the things that serve you, and the
Mm.
things that don't, we can leave. And it
Mm.
doesn't mean to say that those things aren't going to be appropriate for you later on, but it just means that let's have a starting point, a foundational point, and we start from here, have a play, figure out what's going to work for you, give you some things that are really simple and easy to follow, and get you on the road to starting, and
Mm.
then I add layers of complexity to it from there. And in the background,
Sure.
you're always thinking, okay, well, how am I going to move this person in a different way? How can I get them to drink a bit more water? How
Mm.
can I, there's always that behavioral change coaching going on in the background as well. But my approach is always to have the client self-lead. I'm
Yeah.
just there to be alongside them, to help them answer any questions that they have, but it's not about me, it's actually their journey.
Mm. Mm.
So we just go along beside them and help them to achieve the goals that they want to achieve. And at the end of it, they've self-developed all their own tools. They know what they can pick and choose from of their kit of information that they have available to them.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that's what I really love about, the type of work that I do, is that you can go from any spectrum, from someone that is wheelchair bound and in an electric wheelchair, through to an elite athlete that's
Mm.
having some challenges with an ongoing hamstring, recurring hamstring injury or something like that. And you can pick and choose what you want to do. So it becomes like a little smorgasbord of things
Yeah.
that you can pull together for your clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that has taken years of, yeah,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
experience and playing and fun, and just turning it
Yeah.
into a big giant experiment that you go, oh, what
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
happened if we do that?
That you can geek out on.
Yeah, totally.
How it sounds like you enjoy problem solving, like you like the complex clients because
I
they're
do.
not straightforward.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I'm the same. I think if my brain's not working, then it's not challenging enough. Then it's probably the wrong client.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I actually get visibly excited when someone comes in and they're really low mobile. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder, because what you're looking at is, you're not just looking at someone's mobility, you're looking at their quality of life.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that for me is always the forefront, and it's the hidden stuff that no one sees that's going on in the background, and the psychological elements that come with not being able to move very well, or the
Mm.
fear that comes into, I've bent over to pick this one thing up and my back's gone and I can't
Yeah.
straighten back up. And
Yeah.
now suddenly you become really scared of ever picking anything
Mm.
up off the floor.
Mm.
And I see it a lot with parents of children
Yeah.
that have had to dedicate the initial stages of, child rearing and bits and pieces to looking after the kids, and they forget to look after themselves a little bit.
Mm.
And then they go to
Mm.
do something that they would have done, say, 4 years previously, and suddenly their back goes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know and
Yeah.
it's being able to help them understand timing, placing, setting, and how to work in with the kids to find a happy medium. So I really love that I try and get people to fit stuff into their lifestyle. So it's
Mm.
not just about coming into the gym and being dependent on us as coaches,
Mm.
but it is about, like, what does that look like for you? How much time can you give that? Because when they can fit it into their lifestyle, then you start to have those better outcomes for them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, yeah, that's where I get really excited, is that you
Mm.
start
Mm.
to give people a quality of life back that they thought that they would never have. I've got one client at the moment who he's actually amazing. He's been working with me for nearly 11 years.
Mhm.
And he came to me with 3 slipped discs at the physio and he could hardly walk. He's got
Yeah.
mild cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
He was so shy, he didn't talk to me for nearly 8 months. Like he would
Right.
just turn up, say a couple of words, pay his bill, and walk out. And you're like, okay, so well, I must be doing something right because he's
He's
continuing to
coming
come
back.
back. And, and now sort of he was brave enough to tell me what his goals were that he wanted. And in the last 5 years, we've just slowly gone through and ticked them all off. So he's lost 50 kilos.
Wow.
He's got himself a really successful job. He's doing really well at. He's been promoted twice in the last, 18
Mm,
months.
mm,
He's got a girlfriend that he's, just over the moon about because he never
brilliant.
thought that he would find someone,
Yeah.
like that. And just watching his confidence blossom and
Mm,
seeing that quality of life where now he walks everywhere. He can do
yes.
whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
And not just that, but, someone that's had fused ankles and mild cerebral palsy and got badly bullied at school for not being able to move properly. Well,
Mm,
now he squats, deadlifts, bench presses, he can do push-ups better than most of my other clients, and so now you've got to get him doing all sorts of crazy things just to try and challenge his body.
yeah.
And every time he messages me nearly on a daily basis and says, who would have thought 3 years ago, or who would have thought 4 years ago, that I'd be doing this? And it's
Mm,
just,
mm,
that's
mm.
what I do it for, is like,
Oh, it's
it
amazing.
is just so cool to see
Yeah.
someone that didn't have any confidence to even talk to a girl. And now here he is, sort of all these years later,
Mm,
and
mm, mm.
he's very successful in his life.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
That's huge.
that's so
It's
cool. It's
so
so cool.
huge. Yeah, and that's why we do it, right? Because it's just phenomenal how much of an impact that's had on his life. It's it's
Yeah.
it's completely life changing.
Yeah.
Um, so above and beyond any other sort of benefit, the just seeing people flourish is just phenomenal, isn't it? It is really why we do what we do, I think.
It,
Um, have you got any other stories about clients that, the knowledge and the skills that you bring to them, a bit like the ankle and the head, that sort of from a layperson's perspective, don't get the connection. Have you had any of those sorts of wins like you had on yourself with clients? It may have been a shoulder and a hip or something like that um, made quite a difference to them in terms of how they move or what they were able to lift or what it meant to them day to day.
yeah, so I have to say, probably every client that I have is probably a success story
Have you
from
got
that
those?
perspective.
Right.
People don't come to me because they're moving well.
Yeah.
People come to me
Yeah.
because they're pretty gunked up. Something is seriously going wrong. So one of the people that I'm working with at the moment, he's a relatively new client, and he started we must be coming up to 2 years now, and he's massively obese.
Okay.
Massively. He's about 6'6", so he's a big guy.
Mm.
And he was, when he first started with me, about 215 kilos.
Wow.
So walking,
Mm.
getting in and out of his car. He sat
Mm.
in the car and cried outside the gym for half an hour before he ever came and saw me that first time. And he came to me because his knee was starting to go. Because, of course, carrying that much
Mm.
load, even on a big boned person, is going to
Yeah.
have a massive impact.
Yeah.
And he had been diagnosed with atrial fibrillation as well. So he needed someone that really knew what they were doing, because he'd been to other personal trainers who had just put him through these massively heavy, hard workouts, so flipping
Yeah.
tires and rope things, and
Mm.
they just
Mm.
tried to get his heart rate up as high as they could, without
Mm.
realizing, of course, the risks that come with the AF.
Yeah.
So he turned up and said, look, I've got this knee. His thing was, I'm massively obese, but I have this sore knee. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And so once we got around all of that, now he's one of my people that I've got into the PH 360.
Yep.
He doesn't have type 2 diabetes, but he has a whole lot of other health conditions.
Mm.
So we've been able to use his uh, profiling to be able to help him work with timing for food.
Mm.
And I've been able to layer the behavioral coaching side of things to help with that as well. But he was one where he said, "Oh, yeah, it's my knee, it's my knee, it's my knee." And I said, "Okay, right. So let's have a look at your ankles."
Mm.
And he had these shoes because his feet were so big. He had these shoes that were really pulling in on his toes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
first thing we did, of course, was we got him some because he has to wear compression stockings because of his size.
yeah.
So he's like, I can't be barefoot because I just slide around on the floor in the stockings.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so we need to get you bigger shoes. So we got him bigger shoes, and suddenly I was able to get in there and I was able to free his ankle up and mobilize
Yeah.
his ankle, and his
Mm.
knee pain's gone away. So
Mm.
here's another one that now we've got him squatting, we've got him deadlifting, and we've got him doing all those the big
Yeah.
lift movements that he needs to be strong because he is phenomenally strong.
Right.
And we've had one instance where his back, he said, "Oh, I'm really scared about my back because my back, when it goes, it limits me, stops me
Mm.
from moving." And I
Mm.
was like, "Oh, okay, that's really interesting. I wonder why that is."
Mm.
And freed his hips up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all that follow-on stuff. It's like,
Mm.
okay,
Mm.
here's your connectors. Let's have a look at what's going on through the pelvis
Yeah.
because everything stacks above it and it
Yeah.
stacks below it. So
Yeah.
if I can make an impact there, and if I can't make an impact there because the size, does
Mm.
make it quite tricky,
Mm.
then you go for, okay, well, what else can I do? If
Yeah.
it's the knee, then I need to either go below or I need to go
Yeah.
above. Well, maybe I need to do both. So I
Mm.
did
Mm.
both. And then I saw, the SOMA stuff has him self-treating,
Yes. Yeah.
self-mobilizing,
Yeah.
so you're able to give him some power back and control back over his body. And that's been phenomenal. So he has just come along in leaps and bounds. We don't weigh him, we never have. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't need to weigh someone that's that big. They know that they're big.
Yeah.
It's just demoralizing to
Yeah.
make them take measurements.
Mm.
So we go by, hey, how are your clothes feeling?
Mm.
Are you in that smaller t-shirt yet?
Mm.
No.
Yeah.
Um, and the stuff that we give them feedback on isn't around weight loss. The stuff that I give them feedback on is around, how are you moving? How are you getting in and out of the car now? Is that improving?
Yeah.
What's your next thing we want to work on? Going down steps, very difficult.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's work on that, so that we've got wins that happen along the way, all the
Yeah.
way along the journey. So at the moment we're working on stairs, but he can deadlift 100 kilos without
Jeez.
any issues on his
Yeah.
knee,
Yeah. Amazing.
and he's lost 50 kilos easy.
Superb.
He looks
Superb.
fantastic. So just getting there and watching him doing any sort of pulling movement and seeing that he's able to recruit through the core, even though he's still got
Yeah.
quite a bit of, adipose tissue around
Yeah.
that center part.
Yeah.
It's
Still
so
there.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
cool.
Just getting
Yeah,
it going. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome
absolutely.
story. I love the fact that you're picking on the wins that don't necessarily relate to weight, but they relate to life.
Mm,
The getting in and out of the car. It's a classic one, isn't it? Just it's a tricky maneuver. It can be a tricky maneuver for tall people, whether they're overweight or not. But um, asking the right questions and following up and using those as the metrics is just smart programming. Really smart approach. I like it. Really smart.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
and that's
story.
well, that's to me how a good coach operates is that,
Mm.
look, if it was sports specific, you'd focus on sports specific, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
I do get some sports specific people coming through, but normally it's to do with, I don't need to take over from their coach, right? I'm
Yeah.
not there to
Yeah.
coach them in their sport. What
Yeah.
I am there to help them with is they have a hamstring that keeps giving them a lot of grief.
Yeah.
Why is that continuing
Mm.
to
Mm.
happen? And what can I teach them that they can apply to themselves that's going to help to free that up?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where, I think one of the things that I really love is the variety of what we get to do. I can go into work and I can have someone turn up and go, hey, I'm a competitive lawn bowler. I've
Yeah.
actually represented New Zealand and I've played in Australia for ages, and I've just got this kind of niggle. And by the way, I've just finished a 100K ultra marathon. Do you think you can help me with my knee? That's sort of
Yep.
this sort of thing. And then the other day, I had a lady who's had a massive stroke come in.
Ah.
She's in an electric wheelchair, and she said, "Look, my other friend that's had a stroke said that you did some really good things with them, and that you have a gym that you might be able to train me in. What does that look like?" And
Mm,
so,
mm.
so I've got this kind of really, yeah, and then I do
Huge variety. Yeah.
huge variety,
Yeah.
yeah. And because I'm also got a I'm CrossFit trained. I was also an educator for
Ah.
power plates, so I do a lot
Yeah.
of vibration training work as well. So I was
Yeah.
one of the first trainers and coaches to be trained on power plates
Mm.
in Australasia back when they first came out in Melbourne. And once
Right.
I found them, I'd actually been really struggling in my own pelvic floor as a postnatal, recovering postnatally
Yeah.
from the birth of my first child.
Mm.
It had 3 layers of stitches through the perineum, and he'd been pulled out with von Teuse, and it was horrific. I had no control over my pelvic floor
Yeah.
whatsoever. And
Yeah.
the best that everyone could do was say, go and do a core class. And I remember thinking at the time, this is the most ridiculous advice I've ever been given. And at
Yeah.
that stage, I was already undertaking my studies
Mm.
to get into the fitness industry. And so when I landed at Burke Street, the power plates also arrived virtually at the same time. And we had a pelvic floor physio teach us how to use them. And I
Brilliant.
rehabbed myself back. And then I went, right,
Brilliant.
that's it. That took me off onto that,
Yeah.
suddenly I'm a pelvic floor, everything. So, I
Yeah.
did a lot of pregnancy and pelvic floor specialization
Yeah.
for a long time as well, because I
Right.
just felt like that was really undermarketed. So I've kind of fingers
Mm.
wise, I just get bored if I don't have lots of different
So I was going to
variety.
say, you got plenty of coverage. You got
Yeah.
plenty of coverage. The difficulty would be getting in to see you because you've got such a long waiting list, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It can be quite tricky getting into me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah. So when people talk to me about building my business, I'm like, yeah, I don't really
Yeah.
need to worry about that. I kind of actually could really do with someone to help me with the admin.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Need a virtual assistant now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, I think you are more than well equipped to provide us with some tips because that is one of the things that's the theme that I always have at the end of the conversation. And based on our conversation so far, I think you would, well, I've only got so much paper, but I'll, I'll take your top ones, but if you've got more, just keep rolling them out. That's fine.
So one of the biggest tips I think that I can give anyone getting into the industry is I find lots of people are very technically able.
Mm,
So they can technically coach people through how to do a squat, a lunge, and so on and so forth. What they don't, or perhaps haven't focused on before they start working with clients, is people.
mm, mm,
They're
mm.
forgetting that they're people that have lives, that have mums and dads and sisters and brothers and maybe kids and maybe not, and maybe, and that those relationships are really important. And that if you don't have a good relationship with your client, it wouldn't matter how good you are technically, you're not going to be able to impart your knowledge to someone that doesn't feel that they can trust you, doesn't feel that you are going to do the best thing for their body. Um, they're often coming from a place of fear and anxiety.
Mm,
It doesn't matter who you speak to. Someone walking into the gym for the first time will tell you the same thing.
yeah,
I felt like it when I went into the gym for the first time. I felt uncoordinated. I felt stupid. I felt fat and I felt ugly.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, no one else is immune to that.
Mm,
That's
mm,
how everyone feels the first time that they're approaching something that they haven't done before.
yeah, yeah,
So, I think listening to your client and remembering that they're people is first and foremost.
yeah,
Those
yeah.
listening skills are really important. They will tell you everything that you need to know. The
Brilliant.
second thing is, get involved in your local, like I'm going to certainly do a bit of a plug here for the
Mm,
Exercise Professionals Network. Get involved with your local hub. We have Facebook pages. And Exercise New Zealand and Reps are just fantastic resources,
Mm, mm,
and really underutilized. I just think that there's a lot of information there that people don't know how to find.
yeah.
And, it's just reaching out to someone, like yourself,
Mm,
or like me. I'm more than happy for people to contact me anytime, so
brilliant.
that I would rather help people and
Mm,
guide them to the best way to access that information so that they can be really comfortable with how they're delivering to their clients.
yeah. Yeah.
Because it is about keeping people in the industry. The,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
third one that I found is, well, we've got the soft skills and we've got the other bits and pieces and the connection and stuff. A really big thing is get your processes sorted for your business straight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is a
Yeah. Totally
massive
agree.
letdown for people, because if you are really good at what you do and you're doing the listening and you're doing and you have all the technical aspects to it, but you haven't got your processes right, when you onboard a client, it's going to very quickly add up because you need to be able to do your notes, you need to be able to do your scheduling properly, and you certainly need to
Yeah.
be looking after your finances, because if
Yeah.
you don't have a robust business, and it doesn't need to be complicated, it can be really
Mm,
simple.
mm,
I'm XIT and I use Google Forms. It's not
yeah.
it's not hard. you
Yeah.
know I use Hnry. It's fantastic.
Mm,
The best
mm.
thing out. I can't recommend it highly enough for sole
Oh,
traders.
okay.
It does everything for you, does your invoicing, your tax, your GST. It's all done at the point of sale, so that the
Right.
moment that your client pays you, everything goes out, and it just takes a massive amount of the paperwork out of it for you, so you can
Right.
focus on doing the job that you're there to do, which is
Sure.
work with the person.
Yes.
The person.
Yes. That's that's good to hear, Carol, because I've mentioned Henry previously, but I've never come across someone who's actually been a user of it. So it's good to get that feedback.
Mm.
Okay. I
Yeah, I
will
love it.
note.
It was an absolute game changer for my
Mm,
business. I used Xero and used to pay a fortune in accounting fees every year.
yeah.
And then a girlfriend of mine who's a contractor said to me, "Why aren't you using Hnry?" And I thought, actually, why am I not using Hnry?
Yeah.
So I changed over nearly 2 years ago now, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah.
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 So I
Okay.
actually got a tax refund of 1,800, which is what I
Ooh.
normally pay in accounting fees every year.
Ah, there you
I
go.
was like, yes, love Hnry.
Brilliant. I like it, and I think that covers a lot. You've got the soft skills, like you say, you've got the business nous and know-how with systems, and then you've got that sort of that interacting with the industry, and I think those are really really critically important pieces of the puzzle. So
Mm.
thank you for that. I've been scribbling. That's why I was looking down. If people are interested to talk to you more, Carol, what's the best way of finding you?
So best way to find me is actually via Facebook.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I never remember the Facebook handle. I'm sorry. I
That's
tried to look
okay.
it up and I keep forgetting, but cpmovement.com. So carolpericamovement.com is what my business name is.
Okay.
My details are also on my website, so
Yep.
www.cpmovement.com.
Yep.
But also, I'm more than happy for people to contact me directly on email, carol@cpmovement.com. So,
Okay.
I really encourage people to get in touch, to reach out in any
Mm.
way, especially if they are on the Facebook page for the EPNA hubs.
Yeah.
They can certainly get in touch with their ambassador and then get in touch with me, if that's something that they need a hand with. Even if
Mm.
they just want to have a coffee and have a talk about, and I do this a lot with people, where they'll reach out and go, "Look, I'm just getting into the industry. Would you have 5 minutes to buy your coffee?
Mm.
And we'll sit down for half an hour and just chew the fat a little bit." And it just helps
Yeah.
people to feel a bit more confident about the
Mm.
decisions that they're making and
Mm.
some of the challenges that they may find in those first 2 years. But 2 years, you've got to give any business 2 years, and most people don't last that long. So it is persevering,
Absolutely.
and that second year is the really, really critical part of your business. And it'll feel awful because you'll take off,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
it suddenly starts to plateau, and then it'll go down a little bit and everyone
Yeah.
gets disheartened. But it's knowing how to navigate that and having
Yeah.
someone to pick the phone up to and go, "Hey, I'm just not having a good time right now. Can you give
Mm.
me a hand?"
Mm. 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 Yeah. Absolutely. Great. Great advice. And you're absolutely right. That's what we need to be able to do to provide that support for those people because we want them to succeed, to help everybody out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been really great chatting and getting to know you and hearing about your business, and I'm sure people listening will appreciate it too. Thanks a lot, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rich.